Welcome to the London Commercial Offices podcast with me, your host, Steve Berridge, Managing Director at Fidgens Cost Management. This is a podcast where we share the stories, career paths, lessons and insights from some of the industry's most influential people. Anything contained within our podcast should not be considered professional advice, and if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe or follow buttons to ensure you don't miss any of the amazing guests we've got coming up. It also really helps us grow the show. Thanks. Today I'm joined by Michelle Anthony, Head of Development at Oxygen Asset Management. Based in London, Oxygen has over 3 billion in assets under management. Michelle joined the business back in 2014 and has helped deliver more than £1 billion of capital projects. She's also a member of the BCO Mentoring Committee, chair of the Microscope Ball, and passionate about good causes. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome Michelle to the show.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks ever so much for joining us. Look, we've got lots to talk about today. I'm really excited to hear about Oxygen and what you've got planned post-election. But as you know, I like to start right back at the beginning with these episodes, just for me, but also for the audience to kind of get a flavour of where you've come from, the journey that you've been on, and kind of the path that you've trodden to get to where you are today. In terms of where we start, that's completely down to you. Let's go back as far as we can and talk about your
Given
career
I'm
in
50,
property.
that's a long way. I'll see how far back I can remember. No, I just want to say, though, what I found really interesting listening to your podcast, sometimes you can feel like a bit of a fraud in this industry and have a bit of imposter syndrome, think,
100%.
Can I really do this? But it's really interesting that pretty much everyone you spoke to has started at a path where they weren't in real estate or hadn't thought about real estate or didn't want to be in real estate. And that was me. My father was in real estate, so he worked in all areas. He did product manufacturing and development. He built flat pack hospitals all over the world. He was land buying for different housing corporations, and his passion was his job and his work in the construction and property industry. And naturally, being his daughter, I thought, there is no way I am doing that. When I was young, all I was really interested in was English, drama, and getting as far away from what my parents were involved in as I possibly could. So at school and at university, my first love was drama. My plan was to be an actress. I was doing relatively well, and then had a play that I was in London, and I burst my vocal cord at the age of 21. So I popped it. And
this wasn't where I was expecting this to start.
No, well, there you go. Didn't have any private health care. To get it all fixed properly would be a huge, huge cost for a 21-year-old. So I had to pivot and think, what do I do? So I went into sales, which is what all failed actors and actresses end up in. Went into sales and started up a company with some friends running an event called the Building Exchange, which is we would take senior heads of development, heads of banks, all different categories of real estate from top to bottom of the supply chain, take them to a different city in Europe every year, and set them up with one-to-one business meetings, do tours of that city to look at what they were doing differently to the UK. And I met a whole host of people in real estate, and my function was to get people who were involved in making the decisions there. So I would sit down with the heads of real estate, heads of development, all of the major developers, and say, well, what are your issues? What are your gaps? What's not working for you? And then get people there to meet them. And after a few years, one of my clients said, I think you'd be better off working for us. And it was a big development company.
That's a really big step to go from, the arts, so to speak, to sitting down with heads of real estate firms. I'm guessing talking shop. How was that? I mean, was that from your perspective, you were obviously confident in the sense of talking, presenting, being in front of people. Yeah. How did you find that kind of, that transition, that jump?
Really easy, if I'm honest. No, but I think it comes down to, if you are looking to acquire knowledge and you're interested in subjects, and I mean, who can't be interested in the built environment? It's fascinating. We live in it, we work in it, play in it, it's all around us. And to have access to those people, and I think for me, the key to life and the key to anything is to just not try and be something you're not. Don't pretend to be an expert in something if you're not, and don't be afraid to ask questions and be curious, because most people like to talk about what they do and like people being interested in them. And I was just fascinated that there were these huge gaps in their supply chain, and all these people, even when they got to that level, still hadn't got it quite right and still needed help from people. And so I spent 3 or 4 years doing that. And it would be like, we'd be organising 5,000 meetings over 3 days in places like Valencia, We took it to Asia, all over the place, meeting with councils. And I think it was that ability to join the dots and understand where there were gaps in the market that they appreciated. And he said, that's what we need in our business. And I said, well, I don't really know your business. You're a massive company and I don't want to be a number. And he was like, okay, tell you what I'll do. I'll speak to one of our recruiters, external recruiters. I'll get them to find you a job in a smaller firm. Go and learn everything and then come back and join us in a few years. And so that's what I did.
So you clearly made quite an impression on this chap.
Yes, probably. It may have been alcohol related. Who knows?
Well, that's most networking.
Absolutely. But no, I was just really curious and really interested and would continue to question. Had a lot of success in going, oh, you do that, they need that, I'll bring you both together, and sort of understood the metrics. I don't want to let people really into the secret of this industry, but it's not rocket science. We're not doing brain surgery here. I think this industry has a lot to offer for everyone because it's a really practical, engaging industry and you can learn it. If you have an interest in it, it's pretty easy to learn. It's a very process-driven industry, I'd say. So if you're willing to read and learn and have an aptitude for that, that's the most important thing. No ego. Yeah, the smaller your ego, the better, because it's a collaborative industry. It's a small industry. I know people who used to be my clients who are now consultants. I was a consultant. Now I'm more client side. The reality is you don't get anywhere in this industry without doing it together. So I think that's really important. So I got a job at Cube, a PM and QS firm, working in their development team in terms of bringing in new business for them, going out, meeting people, setting people up together. It was a difficult business to be in, a really good business. They're a really successful business. But
was this in London?
In London, yes. So I'm based in London. I might not mention their name. We might cut out their name. What I found at that time, and what I find a lot in PM and QS practices generally, very good at what they do. And I think this is changing now, but from a business development function, they're not always looking to go out in the market and meet people. They find it difficult. So I was doing that. And then I
wonder whether that's because and I'm very much generalising, and I'm a QS.
I know. You're doing a podcast, so you're bucking the trend.
You know what? I always say we're different in the sense of I'm a very good QS, but I'm a better communicator. And actually, for me, this is the part of my job that I enjoy more than the numbers. And actually, anybody can be a QS. It is a skill set, but it's about how you then take that information and feed that into the project team. That's the crucial bit. Yeah. So I'm guessing, from a BD perspective, it isn't necessarily part of their core skill set. It's something that they perhaps shy away from.
And I think you look at a lot of project teams and you get people who are really good at what they do. And when they're talking about what they do in a project meeting, they are phenomenal. Engineers, MEP consultants, cost consultants. But the minute you get to that stage presentation and they're having to present their section to the ultimate client, where have they gone? What's happened? And I spend a lot of my time trying to make sure my team are really comfortable and confident of their capabilities and want to be able to sell that dream to our client, because that's all part of that, is taking the client on the journey and selling the value of everything that you're doing and what you're creating. So it takes time. I feel like they also joke at me in the office because they say I mother everyone, and my initials are MA, so they call me Ma. And I do feel like I'm like everyone's sort of mother, saying it's okay, come on, trying to build everyone's confidence and sort of take them on the journey.
There's worse things to be known for.
Well, I think I'm known for a lot of other things, also being Welsh and angry, if you ask one of my colleagues.
So how long were you BD for at the PMQS outfit?
Gosh, I'm trying to remember because it's so long ago now. So I started there in 2008. And what sort of happened was we were getting in front of bigger and bigger clients. I was out all the time meeting every sector of the market. So I was the person who had all of the contacts, understood what each architect was specialising in, where they could add value. Same with, basically the whole sort of format of the team. So we'd win work and they'd be like, well, Michelle, who should be on this? Can you sort out tender? Can you do this? Can you do that?
And presumably this is leveraging your knowledge and info from the previous business that you were operating in.
Yeah. As well. And, I already knew a lot of people and just was going to speak to them about something slightly different. We broke into new markets, got new business. And I was fascinated. And there was one of the partners there who I still think is exceptional and one of the best project managers I have ever worked with. And I would sit in meetings with him, one of the other project managers, and listen to how they did things, read their minutes, look at their notes. And you learn by osmosis and would go to project meetings. And then, you'd go to client meetings and they say, you know more about this project than anyone. Can you sit in on meetings? Can you do this? Can you do that? And sort of grew that way, and I sort of looked at all the APC stuff, started learning all of that. Didn't tell anyone what I was doing because I was like, didn't know where I was going to take it.
So that's interesting. So you tried to do your APC stuff in the background.
Well, I just thought I hadn't made any decision about what I was doing, but I thought I'm quite interested in this, and I was like, what is this RICS thing that everyone's doing? What do these letters mean? So I would read it all, take the test, go online, do the research, do my CPD, and think, maybe I'll get qualified. And then the more I looked at it and read, and I sort of did everything up to the exam, I thought, I don't actually want to be qualified as an RICS surveyor because it gives you certain restrictions that I don't really think are always healthy in the environment. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to learn everything I can. And then in, I think, 2012, might have been 2013, I was at MIPIM. I was the only one there from my company. Had a friend who is a fantastic construction lawyer who hosted a dinner there every year. He said, come to my dinner. I've got some people I want you to sit you next. I think you'll get on really well. Went to this dinner right at the end of the week. Everyone had had enough. Mike and Aston were there from Oxygen, who are the founders. I sat next to Mike for dinner. Aston wasn't very well. He went off. Had a great night. Got on really well. Came back to London. Met Aston, spent some time together, got on really well, and then they were like, we're looking to do some other things, we're looking at more feasibility stuff, can you have a look at these for us? And we'll go out and look at buildings with them, give them some options. Yeah, so I was sort of like talking to them about and looking at high-level feasibilities. No one in the office really had time to do it. They weren't sure it was going to go anywhere. So we looked at a number of things, brought in some of my contacts. We were looking at some, at the time, office to hotel conversion because offices weren't particularly working very well. Had some connections in that industry, brought everyone together, looked at things, got close on a couple of things. But we all worked really well together and we were all constantly chatting about ideas and how we could improve things. Sold a building to M&G in, I think, 2014. They said, listen, we're going to stay on and be the development managers. Do you want to come and run it with us? And I was like, what are you saying? They said, well, we think you're a bit wasted with what you're doing. Why don't you come and join us and see how you get on? And I was like, okay, I'm not RICS. And they said, we know that. And that's one of the reasons we like it. We've got that covered. We know what you do. You've done the work for us. And it started from there. And having massive imposter syndrome, being relatively brave of my capabilities, I was like, yeah, we can do this. I spent all my time reading everything I possibly could, studying every single report, looking at every single thing in detail, to think I've got to know this better than anyone else because I've got a lot to prove here. That was 10 years ago. And we haven't looked back since. We had one project. We now have a lot.
So how did that first project go then, from your perspective?
I loved every minute of it. I mean, I was, to say consumed by it would be an understatement, I think. I lived and breathed every single moment of it. And I went to every single meeting that happened on that project. I was at every single design team meeting, every project meeting, checking every report, questioning everything. And, would quite openly say, right, this is maybe a stupid question. In fact, I still say that a lot. But would challenge things and question things and just had worked with a really lovely team of people. And I think that's the thing people forget about this industry, is that everyone, with a few exceptions, is really lovely and everyone is looking to succeed together. And there's a lot of collaboration. And I was the only woman in the room as well. So it was a strange dynamic. I think I managed to use it to my advantage. Yeah, I loved every minute of it. We did really well. It was a really successful project. One of the other things I think I found I was relatively good at was just understanding what people need and require. And I think for any DM, what you really need to understand is what is that brief. And not just what does the brief say, what is the value creation that people are looking for. Because the reality is, when I look at most client briefs, they've written down what they think they need. in terms of, just some high level thoughts. But when you really drill down into that brief and question it, what everyone's looking for is how can they add value? And I quickly learned that in project meetings, you need to start focusing on value and not on cost, because cost and value are two different things. And this is what I talk to a lot of QSs about, because a lot of QSs in meetings, one of my QSs, because he brought so much bad news to project meetings, and this was during COVID, I thought I need to inject some fun and try and make a point here. So I sent him in the post a Grim Reaper outfit and said, you need to wear this on our next call when you give your cost plan, because this is how you're appearing to everyone. So it was just a bit of fun, but the point was, you can't just talk about the cost of everything. But it sets the tone. It sets the tone. And I think you have to set the tone in a meeting. All my meetings, I want people to have a good experience, because you're generally working with people for a really long time. So you have to get on. And when you have a bad project team where there are bad dynamics, it really does impact the project. You don't always get it right, try to most of the time. But I ramble. So to go back to my point, though.
Rambling is a perfect trait for a podcast. So carry on, ramble away.
So, it's always about value, not the cost of things. And when I look at budget, you have to think, well, that budget's fine. But what happens if we challenge that? Is that budget actually being spent and generating you a return on investment? And
is the money being spent in the right place?
Is it being spent in the right places? And are you going to get an increased value on your property? Are you going to get an increase in your rents? What is it actually going to do for you? And we had a project that we started not long before COVID. And quite often, it doesn't happen as much now, because I think the DM world has changed over the last few years and it's elevated and people understand the speciality. But it used to happen, we'd get brought into projects that had already started, had already got 2 or 3 stages down the track. And then the client would think, oh, maybe we need to get a DM involved. So you're coming into a project team who've already done a design, they've read the client brief and they followed it to the letter. And we came into this one project and the budget was not huge. It wasn't insignificant, but it was sort of £4-5 million budget for a project out in Wimbledon. But when I looked at the design and what was being developed, the building was really compromised. I thought, this isn't adding any value. And I spoke to the PM at the time and said, listen, this project isn't working.
As in, you're going to spend this £5 million and at the end of it, you're not going to have added the value that you need.
That was my view. I was like, we're not adding any value. They said, but the client doesn't have any more money to spend. And I said, well, I wouldn't spend any more money if I saw this. I said, in fact, I wouldn't spend this money. I'd just paint the building and see what I could do, because you're not making any fundamental changes. So I made the decision, and my project manager was terrified by this, that I'm going to go and speak to another architect, get them to overlay the plans and say, right, what's going to transform these floor plates in this building? I went to an architect I knew, and he sat there with some tracing paper, and the core was a real problem. There was no arrival experience on the floor plates. It was like Hobson's choice when you walked onto it. It was just, you open the left, series of all these doors. Reception was there. There was nothing good about it. And he just wrote on got a piece of paper and he said, I'd do this. And he just moved the core. He said, I just pushed the core this way. There was a weird goods lift that wasn't connected into the rest of the floor plate. And he said, I'm just going to move the core, connect here. We can put doors in here. You've got a great floor plate. This is what we'll do in reception. And within 5 minutes, with some tracing paper, he'd done some design. So I thought, okay, I think this works. So I got my client out for breakfast with the project manager, who just sat there and was like, wouldn't speak because he was just terrified. And I said, okay, this is what I think. I think we've got the wrong architect. I want to do a new feasibility. I showed him just the tracing paper. I said, this is what you get. And he was like, okay, see what they come up with, give it a couple of weeks, put it all together, got it costed. The project manager wouldn't come to the meeting with the client. He was terrified because the cost plan was like about £2 million more than was in the client.
But I'm assuming that the net was higher as well in terms of lettable, and the value that was being created was higher.
It's just not about the net, it's about the quality of the net. Because creating net lettable area is great, but if it's not really good quality, what's the point? Yeah, exactly. We took it down to the client, presented with the QS, presented the new costs, looked at the floor plates, looked at what it created, and they went for it straight away. It was like a no-brainer for them. They were like, yeah, you've shown we've added value. We added about £10 a square foot to the rent by the key moves that we were making. and it worked, and we let it. And that's what I always say. And it was a really good experience because we really pushed the client, but in the right way. So that's what we specialize in doing. And what we are passionate about doing is, if you're going to spend money, make sure it adds value, because otherwise we'll just say don't do it. And we're not in the market of getting work for the sake of it. We have to believe in what we're doing and be excited by what we're doing and be happy that we can challenge this and push on the rent. Because what we ultimately want to do is leave a legacy behind of improvement, better buildings, better quality that people love to inhabit. And what an amazing imprint to leave on society.
Can't argue with that at all.
I've just made myself feel sick. It sounds really cheesy, but it's what I think we fundamentally believe, and that's what I absolutely love about Oxygen. And, you know, it doesn't just come from me. It's what Oxygen has always been. Working with Mike and Aston, and I hate being nice about them, but they really are. I find them really inspiring to work with because they live and breathe it. They came from a fund management background, came out of big corporations and had a real belief that there was a better way to do asset management. We have always, from day one, and, you know, I joined 10 years in, but the belief has always been we look to outperform the market. We look to buy the real estate and outperform the market and make the changes that will future-proof these buildings. They believe in it to their core and are passionate about it. It's what we talk about whenever we're together.
A quick 15-second pause in today's content to tell you about the amazing work we do at Fidgins. We're a small but powerful team of cost consultants based on Oxford Street and focused on the London commercial sector. We help project managers and end users successfully deliver a vision for their projects. For our smaller schemes, 10,000 square foot and upwards, we offer a neat one-stop solution covering PM, CM and EA roles, which is particularly well suited for fast-paced, budget-constrained projects. We also work with a range of brilliant project managers on larger office fit-outs where we solely provide cost management services. These currently include 2 exciting large occupier schemes, both with build costs in excess of 20 million. Whether you're an end user, an asset manager or a project manager, our only rule is that you're nice to work with, because life's too short to not enjoy your day job. So if you want to find out how we do things differently, send me a message on LinkedIn and we can have a chat. Now, back to the show.
We focus on the real estate. It's always new ideas, looking at new buildings, getting really excited about things and sort of living and breathing it. We're a bunch of bores, really. That passion is infectious and it's hard work, but if you really enjoy what you do, it doesn't feel like work. Coming to work should feel like quite fun, as far as I'm concerned.
Completely agree. And I think you said earlier in the podcast, you know, we're not, I can't remember what the phrase you used, but I use the phrase, we're not heart surgeons. You know, nothing that we do is life or death. And I do think some people take what we do too seriously at times.
Yeah.
We need to inject. And I think it is fun, but it's not fun that we need to inject. It's giving people an environment where they feel that A, they can be themselves, whether that is having fun or not, but B, can make mistakes, B, can make a fool of themselves amongst their peers, because I think that's where the best ideas come from.
I make a fool of myself every day. I often say I have no pride left, but you've just got to put it out there. I want people to feel like they can speak up in my meetings and say, no, Michelle, I think you're being an idiot. I don't think they do, because I think they're all slightly scared of me sometimes. Because
I'm not surprised if you're sending them Grim Reaper costumes in the post.
You know what? It just added. It was it was really a difficult time. It was a new project, a difficult project. You know, a lot of the team hadn't met each other in person more than once, with masks on, going around a building, and to be able to have a bit of fun on Teams and sort of, because I always think with project teams, when you meet together, there is this osmosis of collaboration and getting to know each other and feeling comfortable. And the more time you spend together, the better the project comes. You don't get that feeling when you're on Teams. So if sending a stupid costume to someone made everyone relax a bit, it did its job.
Brilliant. Off air, I'm going to have to find out who that QS was.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you. He can confirm it to you.
So talk to me about kind of day to day, because I think a lot of people will look at Oxygen, very active in the market, very well known, yourself very well known and clearly very busy. What is your day to day kind of role, schedule look like? What are you focusing on within a working week? Because, are you still in the weeds on every project, or?
If I'm honest, to roll back, so 2 years, up until 2 years ago, I was head of development. I was development. So I was living and breathing every single project, running every single project. We work off a lean basis because, we honestly believe in our fees being aligned with the client. We keep costs low so we can service our clients well. And I would say, when we work on a project, there is nothing we don't step up for. We are there front line to take the hits on everything. So until 2 years ago, it was just me. We decided it was definitely time to hire someone. We're always cautious for 2 reasons. One, we are all very like-minded here. We work exceptionally hard for our clients, not because we ask people to, just because it's how we are made. And bringing someone new into that dynamic when you have a very successful formula is a little bit scary, because you think, well, what if
they upset the apple cart?
Yeah, absolutely. We were interviewed. We said, right, we need someone else on the development team. If we're going to grow and continue to grow and deliver the quality that we do in terms of our service levels and the project, we need to grow the team. So we went out, put in an ad. We did an ad on LinkedIn. We had hundreds of CVs, mostly from people who were a lot older, very experienced, but you could read in their CV that they were looking to move into DM. And this is the mistake a lot of people make. They think, if I go a bit more client side, life's going to get a bit easier, and I can stand that. Opposite would be my.
And actually, I hear that a lot from sort of younger guys in the market, guys and girls. That ends up being their goal.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Oh, I'm doing this for a while, but I know I want to go client side.
Yeah.
Without
client
really knowing.
Side is tough. It's really tough, and suddenly you are responsible for everything, and you need to take that responsibility seriously, which we do. Some would say too seriously, but I don't think you can be too serious about the money that you're spending for other people. But so we interviewed loads of people, and there was just no one that I thought they're right. So there were a couple of people who came close, and then I got a call from Amber, and she had worked as an architect for me on a project, and she'd just done a pitch for me on a project, and she said, can you call me back? I want to speak to you. It's not about that pitch. I said, yeah. I called her back, and I was like, so what's up? Are you all right? And she said, senior advertising for a DM. Would you consider me? And literally, I can't tell you, my heart soared, because I was like, 100%, absolutely. Come in and see us. Spoke to Aston and Mike, and they were like, oh, she's an architect. And I was like, yeah, she is. How brilliant is that? I said, we know her. She works like a Trojan. Architects are the original project managers. Before they were project managers, architects ran the team.
Go back 20 years.
Yeah, I said they know how to run a design team. She can challenge things technically. Architects, I always feel sorry for architects, because they train for 7 years. They get criticised for 7 years in school. Then you get idiots like me in a design team where they've pored over designs, done something technically proficient. You go, no, I don't like that. It doesn't work.
QSs say that we can't afford it.
Yeah. The QS never curves. And you criticise their design, and they take it and they go off and they change it. It's the hardest role, and you have to be very, very tough and technically proficient. She came in, we met. We don't have really sort of procedural interviews. It's really about getting to know people. She knew how we worked as a business. She certainly knew how I worked, and wasn't scared to take on that challenge. And she joined us 2 years ago, and we have not looked back. It has been the most fantastic experience bringing her on in the team, and having someone else there who is young, hungry, really good at what they do and what they know, and everything else is to be learned. And that's what I would say in this industry generally. Being passionate, committed, and being hungry to learn and willing to work hard is far more important in a lot of roles. Not if you're an architect, you have to be technically very good and trained. But in a lot of roles, that's the most important skill set, because everything else is teachable. Everything else you can learn. But if you don't have that passion and commitment and drive to do the work, put in the hours and learn your skill, you may as well go away.
People that have got a lot to teach, want to give that knowledge to people that want to learn.
Yeah. I would say you can learn as much from someone who's younger and greener in terms of the role than you are, because we all have when you've been doing a job for a long time, you do it your way. And then you have someone new and younger who comes in and who hasn't done the job before and goes, well, what about this? Why don't we do it like that? And I think giving people the opportunity to change the way you do things I think learning is both ways. The younger generation have a lot to teach us and vice versa. I had taught Amber this week what triggers broom mean.
Please go on.
I was having a call with someone on site. There was a piece of equipment where we weren't supposed to be replacing the whole piece. It was supposed to be in perfect working order. Something had gone on it. They needed to replace it. It was a couple of £1,000. The whole thing was like £6,000 to replace. I was like, I don't want to be in a situation where we've got Triggers Broom, which is Only Fools and Horses. You must have seen Only Fools and Horses.
I have.
Triggers Broom. His broom that he says is like 30 years old, but actually every single piece of it is new because it's been replaced 1,000 times. And she was just looking at me going, what the hell are you talking about? And I suddenly realised that I was exceptionally old and using terminology that maybe members of my team might not know, but now she's informed.
And an avid fan now, I'm sure.
No, she's still got no idea what Only Fools and Horses is, but, that's her loss, not mine.
Brilliant. Amber's, did I see that she's sort of pivoted roles-wise at Oxygen, with more of an ESG focus now?
Well, she's not pivoted roles because even when she was an architect, she's so passionate about things. And so when she was an architect, she was always passionate about sustainability. So she'd done, she's a well assessor. She's the active score assessor. She's always been, when we were working on Fleet Place House and she was the architect, looking at all the materials that were low VOC, she would always encourage us to use sustainable products. She would always be looking to push boundaries in terms of what was achievable on our BREEAM, the EPC, everything. She'd challenge and push. And, when we sat down, when we were talking about the role, I said, well, why do you want to do this? What do you want to do? What's driving you towards it? She said, well, number one, I want to have a bigger influence on the strategy, not just on the design. She said, but I'm really passionate about improving our sustainability, making sure the world doesn't burn. She said, that's what keeps me awake at night. And so I was like, as far as I'm concerned, get on with it. This is only a good thing. We are naturally, as a business, our passion is always about reuse. It always has been reuse, repositioning. We haven't been a business that's come out of doing lots of knockdowns and redevelopments. We're a business that has grown by osmosis by taking existing buildings and making them better, changing them, which is really tough. I often say when clients say, so what sort of project do you want next? What can we look out for you? I'm like, well, vacant building would be really nice because we haven't done one in 10 years. So, we tend to do really challenging projects. So when Amber joined us, and I said, well, our buildings are sustainable by the nature of the type of buildings we work in. So if you want to focus on what we can do to drive that innovation forward, looking at new materials, looking at better ways of doing things, pushing our accreditation, do it, go on. And we gave her the freedom to do it. And, we like to try and make people's jobs what they want them to be. And she was always like, I really want to focus on sustainability. I really want to stand out. She's still a DM within the team, but over the first 18 months, we were like, you're doing such a good job. We're going to make you head of ESG. And that's not just outwardly facing, that's inwardly facing to our business. How can you make us as a business really sustainable? So her first part of the puzzle was to take us to a carbon neutral build business and to do it properly and officially and to make sure that we're keeping honest on what we do, because a lot of people,
it's a show. It's almost a PR piece.
Yeah. And I think as a business, it is completely. And when I sit in the agents meetings, they're like, oh, we need an active score, we need this. I'm like, why? Why do you need it? Because a lot
for
of
the brochure.
Exactly. And so we are very much, we want to do everything we can, but we don't want to focus just on the credentials. We want to be doing what's best for the buildings in the most cost-effective way. And if we have a building where it's difficult to achieve some of those higher credentials, what can we do to make those buildings better buildings, using better products, being more sustainable? Because I think we all focus on, there's a big focus on carbon at the moment. When we look at, and at the moment we're doing a lot about how can we make things, how can we design for deconstruction? Because when you talk about things like the circular economy, reuse, what we found is it's really hard sometimes to do the right thing because not everyone is on the same point of the journey. And we've got a project. Amber has found the most incredible company to partner with us with, Collect Eco, and we've saved, I think this year, over 50,000 tonnes of carbon by taking products out of buildings, right down to old sanitary ware, ceiling tiles, carpet tiles, furniture, sinks, partitions, glass, and they have a whole load of charities that they work with, educational facilities, NHS trusts, who have projects they need to do but can't afford to buy them. And we repurpose all of that to them. And it was really tough. So one easy thing, and I always joke with Amber, I said, well, you're part of the cause here because architects started designing glass partition to be a much bigger size. And as we started to try and take down the big glass partitions, we found that the really big glass partitions really difficult to take out in one piece. They break. We started thinking about, well, if that's the case, we need to go back to the drawing board and design and make sure when we're designing things, they can be deconstructed. They're component
There's that
parts
end,
of the right
end
size.
use case in mind.
Exactly. Because when you look at a building, you know, most buildings, I mean, we're working on buildings at the moment that were built in the 50s. Nothing wrong with the fabric of the buildings, but that building has been fitted out probably 10 times at least. In some cases, a lot more in different floors. And the carbon that's been wasted on those fit-outs far outstrips the carbon it took to build it.
We had someone from AHMM on a few episodes ago, and I'll send you the link if you haven't seen it. And they did a study about essentially the hidden cost of Cat A fit-outs in offices over the lifetime. Yeah. And it's everybody's focused on the initial build. Yeah. Everyone's focused on the initial fit-out, but it's the lease events that trigger that Cat A carbon cost over the life cycle. It was really interesting.
How many times do you let a floor in a building to a different company and it all gets ripped out and goes in the bin? You know, and I think the world has changed, but we've always been very focused on that sort of thing here at Oxygen. And what Amber has been able to do, because she's exceptional, is look at everything and take us back to basics in terms of benchmarking where we are on every single building and tracking every single building and showing all the incremental changes. And she's added massive value to what we do. Our team is about to grow again. We have a new member of the team joining us on the 2nd of September who will be the dream team as far as I'm concerned. I'm so delighted they're joining us. They've come to us from M&G. They're someone that we've been working with on the client side for some time, and they're coming to sit with us now and run development projects. So it will be a really strong team. And that's possibly the most long-winded answer to saying I am trying to become a little bit more hands-off in terms of my weekly work and to be able to focus on the parts of the project that I can really make an impact in terms of strategy, planning, procurement. So I'm trying to step back and give people just total ownership of their projects and just then work with them on the strategy. And I do say I'm trying because I find it really difficult to keep my nose out of things because I want to know everything about every project. But I am trying to take a step back, and I can see Amber looking at me in meetings now because I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to come and observe. And then suddenly my mouth hasn't stopped moving for about an hour and she's like, oh, but she puts up with it.
Talk to me then about the year ahead, post-election. Well, how do you feel? But as a business, what's your kind of gut feel about what we're moving into and moving forward for the next 12 months?
We're really excited. I think we're generally, as a business, always pretty excited because we're the type of business, the business started in 2004. I joined in 2014. We're now 2024. We've been through a couple of cycles. We know what happens in the cycles and we know how to live through them. And I think we see opportunity in upturn and downturns of the market. From a development side, the environmental piece is driving, I think, a lot of change in the industry. When you look at buildings, the EPC piece is driving the requirements for a lot of clients to have to upgrade their buildings because they have no other choice. Otherwise, they will become obsolete. And we are a very big part of that journey. Our project sizes have been growing. When I started, our projects were around the 5 million mark. They now go from anywhere from 5 million to a lot of our projects sit around the 50 million. And we have projects 100, 120 million. There is nothing we haven't been involved in now. We are going to be working on a very large-scale projects in Westminster that we are completely consumed by at the moment in terms of excitement.
I can tell by your face.
I absolutely love it. I think it's going to be an incredible project. In fact, we've got two that I'm excited about all our projects, but I've got two projects that I'm really excited about, both in Westminster, both which I think will be transformational, not just for the areas, not just for the rents, but for the industry in terms of what is possible with existing buildings. I truly believe that what we are going to bring forward on both schemes will be transformational and will set a new benchmark in what good looks like. And it's so exciting to be on part of that journey. And I think, the change in planning policy, this retrofit first, I think it's a good thing to be doing, because I think we have to challenge ourselves to be better at what we do and look for opportunity. And, we believe not all buildings should be retrofit, because some buildings are just rubbish. We've all been around them. But the majority, if you've got the right team and the right passion and the ability to really analyse things, it's a 3D jigsaw puzzle. You can take it apart and put it back together and make it look much better and make it work. And I think we're really excited about that journey. It's what we've been doing for years, and it's what we'll continue to do. And I think we're going to prove to the market that you can get best-in-class space and best-in-class rents on buildings that already exist. We don't need to be building big glass towers in the city anymore.
I think that's a really nice place for us to finish today.
I've talked enough for you, have I?
No, listen, brilliant. Thanks ever so much for coming onto the show. We'll pop your contact details and Oxygen's LinkedIn information in the show notes below. Really enjoyed today, and I think our audience are going to love what they've listened to. We'll speak again soon. Thanks, Michelle. This podcast is sponsored by Fidgins, a London-based cost consultancy. Please visit fidgins.co.uk to find out more about our market-leading service and some of the amazing clients we get to work with. We're super open to guest recommendations for this podcast, so if there's anyone in the industry you'd like to get on the show, please visit the website or send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll try to make it happen. Thanks, and bye for now.